Well, we just keep moving, and here we are looking into yet other ways that we can solve multiplication of 2 by 2 digit numbers, right? That is meaning I have 2 digits in one number and 2 digits in another, and I'm gonna multiply them together. We talked about distributive property, like how that really works in doing like a 2 digit by 1 digit number. We're going to look at two things here. We're going to review distributive a little bit using it with 2 by 2, and then we're going to talk about this idea of partial products and what that really means. So I'm going to try to model both of these. Please feel free to follow along at any point, kind of pause and rewind if you're feeling a little confused. But let's just dive in. So we have a 2 by 2 digit multiplication problem here, 13 times 25. Okay, so distributive was that whole idea of I kind of think about, and like I do, I like to rewrite what goes where. And this one can be confusing. This is why I want to show it, but it can also be pretty confusing about the way I do it because when we distribute, it's everything in one number to the other. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to start with this 1, but the 1 is in the tens place, so that's a 10, right? So I'm going to take 1, I'm going to multiply it by the 2 in the other number, right? It's always in the other number. So that's not just the 2 though, it's in the tens place, so it's a 20. So I'm going to set this up first, then I'll solve with multiplication. So I did the 1 in the tens place times the 2 in the tens place of the other number. And then I take the 1, which is still a 10, right, because it's in the tens place. I'm going to multiply it by this 5. Okay, so that's just a 5. Cool. All right, next, oh, let's see what's another good color here. I'm going to start with this 3. Okay, so we have a 3, which is just a 3. I'm going to multiply that by the 2 in the tens place, which is a 20. And then I'm going to take my 3, I'm going to multiply it by the 5 in the ones place, which is a 5. I hope you kind of follow with that. And we'll keep practicing it, but that's really what I did is like each digit is distributed to the other. Just you don't ever distribute within the same number, right? I don't need to multiply the 3 and the 1 and 13. That doesn't happen. So distribute to the other number. So then we go through and we solve, right? We're just going to multiply each one of these and then add up all of my products to get the answer. So 1 times 2 is 2, and then there's 2 place values to fill because it's 100 times greater, so 200. 5 times 1 is 5, and then there's 1 place value, 10 times greater, so 50. 3 times 2 is 6, and then again 10 times greater because it's an extra place value, and then 15. And again, I've organized myself so things are lined up, and then I can just go ahead and add. 5, 11, 12, so 325 when I do this. Okay, so that would be the distributive property, which can be confusing because you really have to keep track of all of your digits. So that's just one, well, you can use it. I like it, but again, I always think about what's more efficiency. So partial products I find to be a little more efficient. So let me show you how this works. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stack because I really want to be thinking about place value. So I'm actually just going to erase this so I have more room. And then let's get back into it. So 25 times 13, right? And again, I could put either number on top. Doesn't matter. 13 could go on top. I like 25. The bigger number on top works for me. Okay, so distributive or partial products is very similar to distributive because I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start in my ones. And I'm going to say 3 times 5 because that's the one above it, right? See that? Okay. And I'm going to stick with that 3 because I still have to, again, I'm just like distributing. I'm going to multiply it by that 2, which is a 20. Okay. So I did this 3 and I times it by the 1 place up there and the tens place up here. Okay. And then we're going to just move on. I've done this. I distributed it with both numbers. Now I'm going to do my 10 here. I'm going to multiply it by the 1 over here. And then by the tens place. So very similar, right? But it's just the way I can like look at it. I find that if I look at it this way, I don't get so confused of did I use every number correctly. So now let's just multiply. We have 15, we have 60, we have 50, and we have 200. Hope this all works out. Should get the same answer. 325. Okay, so partial products, check. Distributive, check. Are we done? No, we're gonna do more. So let's see. Let's just do one that's using partial products again, because that was kind of, well, they're both new, I guess, with 2 by 2, but that was the newest. So partial products. I don't know, 37, and let's multiply it by 24. Okay. So one thing I like to do is I do like to write out the multiplication sentences. Some people just write in the answer. So I do think, though, if I start here with my 1 and I multiply it by that, right? And I'm writing the sentences kind of out here. I'm going to save this area. You can't see where I'm pointing. Sorry. I'm going to save like this area for like my answers. So that's kind of what I was referring to. All right. So boom, and then boom. So that's 4 times 30, because it's in the tens place, right? Remember that, it's in the tens place. Okay, so I'm done with the 4, because I did it to each. And then we're gonna go to this 20, right? It's a 20, it's in the tens place. And multiply it by that 7. And then we're gonna multiply it by the 3 that's above us, which is really a 30. Okay, so now we just do the work. 28, 120, 140, and 600. We add them up, and we'll have our answer. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 6, 7, 8. Oh, I didn't even plan that. So 888. So that's how you can do that again with your partial products. Now, what does that look like with distributive property, right? Now, let's kind of go back to distributive. That's a few outcomes. And let's do 54 times, I don't know, 20 to the 6. Okay, so we're going to distribute. So actually stacking it like this could be a little confusing. So I guess I'll rewrite. And that's okay to do that, right? Find the technique that works best for you, and then go ahead and rewrite. So I'm going to start here, which is a 50 because it's in the tens place. We'll multiply it by here, which is a 20 because it's in the tens place, and I'm going to distribute it to 50 times the 6. Okay, so I'm done with the 5. Used it. So now let's go over here to the 4, and we're going to distribute it to the 20 and to the 6. And then, as always, we're going to multiply through and then add up my products. So 5 times 2 is 10, but there's 2 place values, so that's 100 times bigger. So I need 2 more zeros. 5 times 6 is a 30, but it's a 50, so that's 10 times bigger. 4 times 2 is 8, and then 1 place value, so 10 times bigger. And 4 times 6 is 24. And we're just going to add these up. So we get a 4, 10, a 4, and a 1. So 1,404 using the distributive property. So as you can see, these are 2 techniques that work pretty well. I always say find the one that works well. You want to practice them both because you just never know. Sometimes questions will be asked to solve using a certain technique. I always just say use what works best for you and then kind of double check, but it is good to know them all and then practice them all. But when it comes down to just solving, use the one you're most comfortable with. So I'm just going to go back to partial products with this one. So I'm going to stack it for that. And then I'm going to show you, if you're getting your mental math down, it's great, but I don't know, never mind. I don't, because I'm not a big fan of that, because if you start doing things in your head, I think you'll lose track. So that's 8 times 3, and then 8, and I like drawing these circles, or these like circles and arrows, I think it really helps, times 60. Okay, and then this is a 10, And notice I'm only really using the bottom ones as like my start number, and then they're distributing to the top digits. So there's a 10 times a 3, and then 10 times that 6, but it's not 6, it's 60, right? So now we just multiply. 3 times 4, or excuse me, 8 times 3, I don't know, right? 24, 8 times 3, that's what we're doing. 8 times 6, 6 times 8 is 48, but it's another place value, so it's 10 times bigger. 10, 20, 30, and then 6 and 2 place values, so it's 100 times bigger. Now we just add those up. 4, 10, 13, 10, and 11. And there's my answer, 1,134. So distributive property, partial products, these are both techniques that you can use. We'll look at some others. Don't worry, we're going to solve others. So I don't want you to panic, but I mean, practice, right? Practice these out and see what happens, because once we know our techniques, whatever technique we so desire to use, then we can solve anything. We can solve a 2 by 1 digit number, right? Something like we did before, like 54 times 9. We can solve 2 by 2 digit numbers, so maybe 54 times 93. Ultimately, we're going to be looking at 2 by 3 digit numbers, so maybe that's 54 times 937. And then finally, we're going to learn how to multiply 3 by 3 digit numbers. So 542 times 937. The thing is, it's all in the technique. How many numbers we do doesn't change the techniques that we use. And as I said, if you know all your single digit stuff, you're going to be just fine. So don't worry. Keep up the hard work. Keep up the practice. Ask questions, right? Put them in the comments. Email us, whatever it takes, but just keep asking questions for help. And as always, we'll see you really, really soon.